We're all ready now for the panel discussion. Our first question is to Mom Trista Sue. As a founder and president of Agents of Change International, did you only seek mentorship from Dr. Myles, or did you also entertain any kingdom teachings from other people?
Well, at the time, I received the first revelation of the kingdom sitting in a service that he was conducting at a place in Florida. And in 35 years of my life, I'd never heard anything like this. And to this day, I've yet to find anyone that understands it and communicates it to the degree and the understanding, the revelation that he has. But there are some other people that do have it, of course, naturally. But as far as I was concerned, he is absolutely the master communicator and the best in our generation that we've ever seen when it comes to rediscovering the kingdom of God. And not only that, but he paid a price for it. He was rejected in his community. He was considered a cult. And that's what happens a lot of times, because people don't understand. You don't fit in this box. It's not a religion. You're a heresy. You're a heretic. And so he was the only one that, to this day, I'm not even finding another mentor or anybody else to learn the kingdom from. In my mind and my personal time with him and traveling, to me, he is absolutely the best. But I do have, since he transitioned, I do have a proper covering. Since he was my covering, I had to fast and pray and find another covering.
Thank you, Mr. Trista. So another question, I think any one of you can answer. This one is I was asked by a workmate from one of our delegates here. The question is, can you achieve your purpose and vision outside the context of God?
Yes, many people do. You look at entertainers, we talked about Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, but look at what happened to some of those at the end of their lives. Their vision was destroyed. They died prematurely, compromised, character questions, addicted to drugs. So again, without discipline in that area, but many people, because again, like Xavier covered, your gift is not retracted from you. It's a gift that God gives everybody. So it's up to yours to use it to glorify God or use it to glorify yourself.
Wow. Awesome. Clap. So, the next question is, what's the difference between passion and just something that you really want to do?
You mean like a hobby? Hey, let's go fishing. Honey, I want to go fishing all the time. So my husband makes fun of me because he goes, golf is part of my vision, because he wants to go play golf. I'm like, no. That's a hobby, but you go play your golf. I understand that. And he needs that to unwind. So yeah, I believe there's a difference between a hobby and a passion, a gift. And you need to discern them too. I used to be an amazing volleyball player in my region, and I lived and breathed volleyball. My cousin is an Olympian. Wow. She was in the Olympics in Brazil, and she didn't make it to the recent one because of her shoulder and her knee injuries. But I could have pursued that same. So there was a time in my life when I was in my college, my high school years, where that was my passion. But fortunately, I did not pursue it. And, I could have used that unto God, as my cousin is. She, on her social media, she has a lot of followings and she gives God glory all the time. And she's a very humble servant of God. But that definitely is not a lifelong passion. But many times it can be. I know a kingdom soccer player. We featured him in our Kingdom Life magazine I did years ago with Dr. Munroe. And so he uses his platform. And there's some celebrities that use their platform. Recently, I met Mark Wahlberg, who's in a lot of movies, maybe you know, and maybe you saw if I posted. But I said, hey, I hear you're a man of God. And he looked at me and he goes, well, yeah, I am. And I said, good, I'm a woman of God. And I pound fisted him. And ever since then, that was like That was in February, a few months ago. He's been posting a lot on his prayer life and stay prayed up. You know, he's Catholic. That's okay, it's forgivable. But he's using his platform. He's not perfect, none of us are, but I respect him. A man in Hollywood, we need more men in Hollywood that use their platform to give glory and honor to God. And so that was an amazing encounter, and I encouraged him. Because most people who meet celebrities, oh, I love this movie, or someone said, what watches do you wear? And what kind of questions, what watch do you wear? These people were asking him. And I'm like, you're a man of God? Good for you. I'm a woman of God. I'm proud of you. So that was fun.
Okay, this is regarding business. How do you hire your employees? Do you hire them? Do you hire them based on skill or if they are aligned with your vision?
Well, in business, that's, you know, for instance, me in the hotel industry. The vision is accommodating guests, making comfortable place and cleanliness for the guests. So of course I hired according to the vision because housekeeping, the restaurant, management, different areas, yes, you hired according to the vision. But when it comes to an organization or a nonprofit like we're doing, it's a completely different process. And it takes time and testing and to be qualified for the vision, and only time can do that, and the people have to go through that sifting process themselves, and the cream rises to the top organically, naturally. So, you know, it's kind of like even when Jesus had his disciples, he chose them, they sifted themselves, Peter was restored, Judas was not. He went and hung himself. And so it's kind of par for the course when it comes to whether it's a business, you know, that can be a little bit different than an organization representing God. And, you know, Daija, you were in retail, and so you were in management position and you hired people. And I would think the same principles probably relate to that as well.
Yeah, I've been in business for 18 years, and I've been a general manager. And some of the things that I've always looked for in employees is their attitude. You can go so far with a positive attitude. Someone who wants to learn, who is teachable, those are the best people to hire on your teams. I have had many instances where I've been in a position of desperation, and I'm like, I just got to hire somebody, right? And so you kind of hire the best of like what you can find. And although I've found ways to make it work, you know, I'm resilient, but I always try to look for someone who is teachable, someone who shares my values, respect, honor, positivity. You know, they have a moral compass, they don't steal. But a lot of my hiring, honestly, is much more intuitive. And I know that's not something that everybody has a natural instinct for, but that has served me very well. Is I just like to have a conversation. When I interview people, I don't make them feel like they're being interviewed. And that's the trick, because when people are going in jobs for an interview, they're already prepping themselves up to say all the right things and it's perfect, right? So when I meet them and I start very casual, hi, how are you? It's so good to see you. I'm so glad you're here today. Let's just have a conversation. Tell me about yourself. And I look at the way they respond to answers. I look at their body language. I look at their demeanor. I look in their eyes, always in their eyes. I ask them questions that make them feel like they're not being interviewed. And they're like, wow, that didn't really feel like an interview at all. But that's because I want to see how they're going to be in a natural conversation, right? We're working with people. So I would say definitely it's intuitive. It's based on values. It's based on just, you know, when you see someone, their body language, you can kind of get a sense for who they are. You know, are they easygoing? Are they kind of tough? Are they closed off? Are they open? Those are all things you have to think about. If we're working with people, and business is people, then we've I got to make sure that I'm hiring people who people like. So someone who is likable is definitely. I do hire for skill, and I do hire for gift. So when I've run stores, I've always asked people, if you could do anything, what would it be? And what would be your favorite role within the store? Maybe you came in and you were applying for a sales position, but sales is not your gift, okay? So I've actually I hired someone who was 18 and really wanted to get into sales. And, I was kind of in a position where I really needed to hire somebody, and she was looking for a job. And I hired her for a sales role. And it ended up being that at first, she completely bombed her first customer interaction, bombed it horribly. And she felt really bad. And I went up to her and I said, listen, okay, we got some work to do. This is no joke, okay? But it's okay. We're gonna start you out very slow. Let's start in the back room unboxing shipment. Let's start in operations and let's kind of work your way back out. Maybe we get you more comfortable with the product on the floor, right? Get you more comfortable with the teammates that are in the store. And then let's go start at the cash register where all you gotta say is, hello, did you find everything okay? Let me ring your items, put them in a bag, thank you, and they go, right? And then we worked our way up to a sales role. And then I worked with her a lot in that sales role. And after 2 years, she ended up being my right-hand man. My right-hand man. Her name is Lizzie, yes. And she ended up running the store when I was not there. And she was 18 years old when I hired her. So by 20 years old, she was already being left in charge of a $3 million store. So I love to invest in people. And I think that's a game changer when you're a business owner, when you're a manager, is that if your people feel like you are willing to invest in them and you care about them and you pour into them and you give them opportunities and you are gracious and you are patient, they will become your best people. But also you got to throw in that intuitiveness too. You got to feel like, are they teachable? Do they have a good attitude? Do I like working with them? Because I got to spend all day with them. So that's how I hire people.
Wow. Perfect. Thank you. So I think this question is from our level 2 course. We've learned that we need to transition from being employed to deployed. What's your advice on how to effectively transition from leaving an 8-hour job?
Well, I have a gentleman here that has deployed himself recently. A what job?
8-hour job.
Oh, corporate job.
Well, what are we? The one thing that everyone needs to have to be successful is first a vision, right? So also, you don't just get up and leave. You got a plan, and your plan. So I'll share what my wife and I did when she knew she had to be done with corporate. We both bring in incomes, and I said, all right. So I always knew that this vision was important because of what it represents. So I knew that whatever she was doing had to line up with what the vision is going to turn into for our lives. It's just, and she didn't understand it at first. So for instance, there was jobs that were very high paid jobs that she was very well qualified for. But when she described to me the responsibilities, I was like, that's not the job. She's like, yeah, but we need money. I'm going, no, we don't need money. We have a vision. So she didn't understand, but she trusted me and my judgment. And would it pay? Would it provide more money? Absolutely. Would it make life better? Absolutely. But it wasn't the vision. It's just something that I just knew as a husband, this is not the route for us. Now, I didn't see her here doing this, but I knew that it was something pertaining to not what she was looking for. So that's a real thing in the sense, we're married and we have to discuss issues like that. But she did trust me. And so also with the planning is, limit your debt. Start thinking about, okay, if I'm going to be on my own, I got to plan ahead. What's it going to cost me? How much is it going to cost me? Do I have to downsize? Okay? If you're single, I think it's a little bit more easier. But when you're married and then you have children, that's a real thing. You have to consider all those things. One of the worst things that I've heard in my experience with Christianity is people are like, God has called me to the ministry, and then they just leave. I'm like, whoa. Obviously, the pastor job doesn't pay a lot, whatever. But you have to plan, and God will start to work with you. But be smart, save, minimize your debt, have a plan, know where you're going, and make sure that what you're going to go jump into is lining up with your vision. And I always knew that I would be a part of this vision in some form or another. But I wasn't asking Trista for that. It was just a time thing. So I knew, like, okay, minimize the debt as much as we can, work with what we're working, we have. We minimized down to like one car. Like, we were really trying to, like, okay, how much could we live off of one salary and one, all that was, I factored into it the best that I could in our ability. And then we had to manage better, which we learned that a long time ago. In 2015, we actually filed for bankruptcy. It was one of the most lowest times in my life because as a man, one of our things is to provide for the family. And I felt horrible. I was like, I can't even provide for us. My wife is so gracious. She's like, it's going to be okay. We're going to start over again. And this is when I just started learning about management, because I had been with the community for 2 years, I think, at that time now. And it was a very humble experience. But let me tell you, the pain that came from that, we ain't doing that no more. But the beauty of that was, okay, so, all right, we're done with that. What are we going to do now? So the first thing we did when we got home from the court procedure, okay, what do we want to do? And she wanted to start a business, spray tanning, and I wanted to go to school to be a producer.
Hold on, let me just add something real quick.
Go ahead.
Add something. When we went bankrupt, I actually moved a few states over to go find a better paying job because I couldn't find anything in my area. And Xavier stayed back home. So we were not living in the same house. I couldn't find a job that paid, and we were in such high debt. I would have to work a job that paid over $90,000 a year just to keep up with my debt, our debt. It was so tough. So I moved away. I was working. I was, making pretty good money. And Xavier's like, you have to come home. And I'm like, I'm not coming home because, mind you, we lost our apartment. We couldn't afford our apartment anymore.
So here's let me paint the picture.
And we've never told this story, by the way. So you guys are the first ones to hear this. Very first.
We're in debt, and I'm with the community. I'm learning the kingdom. She's frustrated because she's like, well, I thought God helps you. I'm like, it doesn't work like that. And right. So, because one thing I've learned is, like, if you create the debt out of ignorance, that's your bills that you pay. That's your problem. God doesn't pay bills that you create. He pays bills that he wants you to create for his vision. There's a big difference. And I learned that. We learned that. So as we're learning that, I remember I said, okay, only because I wanted to keep up my credit score, because I had perfect credit. I don't want to ruin it, right? So I pay the bills, but we're paying out more than what we're making and bringing in. And it's becoming very real. So my sister offers her, why don't you come to Texas and you can work a job, because Daija will get a job anywhere. She's excellent at what she does. So she did. She moved away for 6 months. We lost the apartment, so I'm living with my ex-neighbor in his apartment, 1 bedroom. We got stuff in storage. And then it's 6 months, and I was like, we can't do this no more. So I told Trista, hey, check it out. I don't think this is going to work out. And she goes, why? And I explained to her. She goes, Xavier, all I'm going to tell you is this. Never make a decision based on finances. Now, what Trista did smartly as a leader is she didn't tell me to stay, and she didn't tell me to pray. That's all she said. I said, okay. She goes, if you get the scratch paper feeling, you might want to think it. I said, no, I feel good about this. And she's okay. That's all I'm going to tell you. All right. And that was the end of it. So I remember one night I'm talking to her, and it was as clear as day. I'm talking to her, and I hear this Holy Spirit tell me, you need to bring her back. I was like, and that feeling, the last time I had that feeling was when I married someone I shouldn't have married, and then we had gotten divorced. So I said, okay, we're not doing that again. So I told her, you need to come back now. She was, what are we going to do? I'm going,
I said, I'm not coming back home until you find me a place to live.
Yeah,
'Cause I'm
that's
not
right.
couch surfing anywhere. And I need to find a job. And I would say within a couple of days, I got a call from a friend. Basically, her father bought a duplex. It's two houses conjoined together. Okay, and she was like, "Hey, I need a roommate, and I would love to live with you and Xavier. Could you come live with me for $500 a month?" And I go, "Yeah, okay. Place check. All right, what's next?" I got another call from an area manager that I had worked with at a previous company when I first got into business, and he called me and said, "Daija, I'm in Naples and I got a couple of stores I want you to run. What are you doing right now? Where are you working? Are you available?" And I said, "Actually, I am." He goes, "Gosh, if you could come manage my stores, I would love it." So I was like, well, there we go. Within 2 days, I had a job and I had a place to live. So we come back home, and mind you, this duplex was infested with cockroaches. Okay? It was gross. There was no air conditioning. It was hot, cockroaches, and we were sleeping on an air mattress that was as big as our bedroom with a couple of suitcases. And we went, and I said, okay, we gotta figure this out. So I said, all right, we gotta do this. We need to manage our finances. We need to track, how are we spending our money? So for 30 days, we kept spending as normal, like we normally did. And I was like, after 30 days, we're gonna sit down and we're going to go over and we're gonna see how much we're spending and where we're spending it at. And this is a management key, okay? We sat down, we started logging all of our finances, and we made columns. We're like, okay, groceries, gas, rent, utilities, miscellaneous. And I thought, oh, well, definitely it's groceries. Those are very expensive, and that's why we're losing all of our money, because of groceries. It turns out it was all miscellaneous, which means it wasn't food, it wasn't transportation, it wasn't rent, it wasn't utilities. It was miscellaneous. And so I spent $900 at Chipotle in 1 month. It's a restaurant. Sorry, it's a restaurant that you walk in, you get rice and chicken, all this stuff, but $900 in 1 month for just going and getting a little chicken bowl, okay? And I thought, wow, we are really bad at managing our money. No wonder we're in the position that we're in. So we ended up, I said, okay, one of us has to start a business, one of us has to go to school. So I started a business, and within I said, okay, I'm going to put everything I have into getting this business started. Put in $1,000 in the first 30 days. I made $3,000, okay? And it just started growing from there. And Xavier says, I really want to go to this school. I'll let you take over.
So let's fast forward. I was able to graduate and go to school. We learned management.
Debt-free, tuition-free.
Tuition.
Tuition-free.
Mm-hmm. So the answer to the question of deployment, planning,
Yes.
management.
Yes.
Where you are now, if that's going to be the goal, start doing it now. Vision, and ask God for direction.
Yes.
Because it's a risk. You're going to jump. You're into your vision.
I think there's 2 elements to add. The agreement of your spouse.
Yes.
And the insight. If you're a man, the woman is built to help you. Men, you need help. We're helpmates. We're built for you.
Yes.
We can't help ourselves. We know what you're built for. We understand that. But we know what we're built for. And we can't help ourselves either. So I think the insight and the discernment from your spouse is very important. And the other thing I'm going to add to this that I've noticed in our lives is the associations you have.
Yes.
And saying, does anyone know somebody that knows about partnerships? Like Daija came to me. I want to know about partnerships. And I said, well, we don't believe them in our family, in our businesses. But I know someone who knows a lot about partnerships for companies. Let me connect you, and why don't you come over for our house for coffee, and we can have a conversation. And they will learn much about what they need to know. So find somebody that's an expert in their field, has learned the ropes in their field in the direction that you want to go, and take them to lunch. And then listen to them and ask them questions, because they've been where you want to go. And honestly, I think that's one of the keys. And sometimes they'll say, I have a person for you that I know that can actually help you and was looking for somebody like you and can show you the way. And you just never know. So I think that's a big element, is the people factor and connecting to the right people when you're deploying yourself, when you want wisdom, because you don't want to learn the hard way. People, we've done that. So let's learn from those that have gone before us. But also, the timing needs to be right, and that don't go against the discernment from your spouse as well. If you're single, you don't have a lot to lose, honestly. But so that's my recommendation.
And when I deployed, I had planned and I was ready. So at any given time, I'm like, okay, we're ready. So whenever that happens, God. And I remember when Trista called and said, hey, I told her, hey, I called her and said, hey, it's time for me to leave the job because God has something for me according to the vision. I didn't tell her it's for the School of Influence or anything. I just said, it's just time to go into the vision. She goes, really? I'm like, yeah. And then so she called me, and now I had facilitated school agents of change. So, and it was a risk because, anytime you deploy, you just need to go and just make sure you have peace, though. And I had peace. I said, all right. I even asked God, give me a sign. He gave me the sign. I was like, okay, it's time to go. And that's how you do it.
One of the things I just want to add, I apologize. One of the things I want to add is when you're getting ready to deploy, what happened for me was I knew that in my environment, I wasn't going to learn anymore. I was kind of capped at what I could learn. And I'm such a person who is into growth, and I want to achieve more, and I want to be able to do more, and I want to learn more. And when I found myself feeling like I was the biggest fish in the smallest pond, that was confirmation for me that it was time for me to go. But I also had a peace about it. And I just knew, I was like, it's time for me to go. But one thing that I did was I skilled up. In my job, I made sure, I'm like, okay, since you being in retail as a general manager, do I know what I know to run a business on my own? Can I really do this? What more do I have to learn in order to move on to the next phase of my life? And so when I realized that I was that big fish in a little pond, that's when I knew, you know what, it's time to go. There's no question about it. So if you don't have a total peace about it, don't make the move, but make sure you're skilled up, you have a vision, you agree with your spouse if you have one, and you have a great peace about it. So, yes.
Wow. Thank you so much. So the next question is for Miss Trista. You shared this last night about this, your town's children's park being a venue of a drag show. Can you share to us how you would have wanted to counter that event if you were in the meeting?
Oh. I was watching on the TV that morning. I was so fired up. And now you want me to recall all that. I'm not in the heat of the moment.
Can you share a little bit of what happened so that?
Oh, yes,
yeah,
of course.
Thank you.
Of course. That seemed like so long ago. So
Right.
much has happened since then, but it was, a month ago? Yeah. Okay, so in our city, we have a quiet little city, about 350,000 residents in the city. It's probably grown some since the pandemic. And it's a very beautiful, orderly, peaceful retirement town that all the executives around the world and in America, they retire to. So it's a very high-end, nonchalant city. It's very costly to live in this city. Well, all of a sudden, there was an event permit passing through city council to have a drag queen show at the park right next to the children's playground in the city. And we said, wait a second. Our children are going to be exposed to the drag queen contest. And they had it last year. And it was so bad. And they were putting dollars in the G-strings of the men, women. And it was very provocative. And it should have been rated in a strip club. Like it should be inside, indoors, not out in the public. And so my suggestion, I can't even recall all of them that I had, but one of them was, we will not allow this in our city because we stand for righteousness. You are allowed to behave however you want in the privacy of your home or in the privacy of a building, like a casino that doesn't have any windows way out 20, 30 miles away, but not in our city, for we stand for righteousness. And we don't allow our children to be exposed to this, I don't know what you
Debauchery.
call it, pornography in a sense, really honestly. But the problem was, so many people that got up were just, all they could do was quote scriptures. And some of them were relatable, some of them were not. And some were like, where are you going with this? What are you referring to? And so I was texting Daija, I can't get down there right now because I'm driving my kids to an appointment, but you go and you be a mouthpiece and you need to speak to this because somebody has to. We cannot keep quiet with our voice. And so honestly, I can't even remember at this point what I wanted to say. I probably texted it to you. I could pull up my text, but I was so fired up, I couldn't even see straight. How dare you come in our city and have this pornography situation in front of our children at the playground? Yeah. What do you remember?
Well, I spoke at city council in front of them, and I just said, we all know that there's nothing wrong with having gay pride. There's nothing wrong with, if you want to express yourself, America's a country that's all about freedom and self-expression and whatnot. But not in a public playground, not in our public park where there's families that are out. It's a very family-centric little city. And I told city council, I said, I don't care if you approve this permit, but it needs to be indoors where it needs to be appropriate. And mind you, our city doesn't allow sex shops or strip clubs. Yeah. They are not allowed. So I said, if you're not going to allow strip clubs and sex shops, why are you allowing a drag show where they're very provocative? So I said, I have nothing against people who want to be gay, but we need to have some decency in our city. Because if we start to let this go, we let everything go. And some of the states in our country are a mess because of it. Xavier and I moved from Oregon State. Oregon State is like the gay capital of the world, okay? Like San Francisco, California. So when we came to Naples, it's very appropriate. It's very classy. I said, this is not classy. Nothing against gays. It's just not classy. And they still went ahead with it.
Okay, I have my text. I know what I would have said. I text Paul, my friend who was there, because I couldn't even see straight. I said, I can't believe I didn't know about this. I would be there. I know exactly what to say. And I said, because remember, they were making it all about love. So everybody that was for it says, oh, you guys are haters. You don't love us. We're all about love, and you need to accept us because of love. And if you don't like what we do and don't accept it, then you're hatred. And, on and on they went. And so they were making it the issue about love. And I said, this is exactly what I would have said to them. God loves everybody, but he doesn't tolerate everything. Yes. They have the right to do what they want with their lifestyle. However, we don't want to celebrate it. Don't make us celebrate and be prideful about your private life in our streets, in our parks, with our children watching. So we have to understand that, because people throw love around and tolerance. God himself doesn't even tolerate everything. It's very clear who will and will not inherit the kingdom of God, but yet he still loves every single one of them.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's go back to business. For business people who are part of a corporation and are trying their best to live righteously, what advice can you give when majority of the decisions made by the fellow partners are violating the principles of the kingdom?
Well, there will be a time for you to address it. If you're in partnership with them, it needs to be addressed, and you don't need to be in partnership with people that are of character, because it will be a reflection of your character also, because of your affiliation. So I would leave an affiliation if you are not in control of that corporation and you're not in management to make changes to make it righteous. You will see many times, even in the Bible, where people had to stand for righteousness, and it went against everybody. You look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they paid a price, but they didn't bow. And a lot of times, they'll either fire you or they will disgrace you because they will feel convicted, but you have to stand for your conviction. And again, they won't like you for it, but they will respect you. So we cannot be afraid to let our voice be heard. And the other thing, when I was in a position at the hotel as an owner, the staff would come to me at times, and there was one time we had an overpayment from a guest, a check they had already paid. It was a duplicate something from a corporation, I believe. It was a corporate account. And I said, well, that's not our money. We need to send it back to them. They would have never known, and we could have kept that money, and they would have never known. But I'm sending a message to my staff also. This is how we operate. In many instances come up with that with corporations. And sometimes you're not in a position to be able to monitor that. And maybe it's somebody higher up than you that is not operating with integrity, or if you're in partnership. But I do believe it needs to be voiced. They need to know where you stand. And it may cost you your job. So expect to lose your job if that's the case. And then when you're on your next interview or you're deploying yourself, you say, what happened with the last job? Well, I noticed some corruption and I made a stand. I said, oh, wow, we'll hire you. We want you to come work for us. We want those values.
Righteousness always wins. Always wins.
All right. Thank you. This one is about vision and purpose. Is there a vision or purpose in your life that are not yet fulfilled? And what are your next steps to fulfill it? I think it's following through.
There's probably more to my vision than I'm aware of, because God doesn't show you everything or you'd run away.
Yeah. Yeah.
His ways are higher, his thoughts are higher.
Yeah.
So he always shows you the end result, but he doesn't show you the process. And so as for Agents for Change, we have some more curriculums in the pipelines that have already been started. We have a Kingdom one that's probably 80% done, and it's all meat. It's good. And then the next curriculum I have already started is the School of National Influence.
Wow.
You like it.
It's going to be so good.
Okay. So that's the next one we have in the works. And that was actually the topic of our symposium last year, 1 year ago. And so those are the kind of things in the pipeline. But to me, I think simple or less is more. And so the vision isn't buildings or more people or masses, but I believe I always try to look at, what did Jesus do? How did he model his organization? And it wasn't complicated. It was very simple. So sometimes we complicate things because we see how other people are doing it. We think big is better. Big is harder.
More to manage.
It's way more pressure, way more stress, and then you have to maintain it if it's not divine. So that's just my recommendation. Keep it simple. Only a few things in life are necessary, and you narrow it all down to one thing, like Jesus said. And he will never put a weight on you that you can't manage.
Right.
So keep it simple for your sake.
Wow, that's exciting.
Woo, what a relief.
So this one's about the young people. So what are your practical ways to lead and transform the lives of the youth?
Oh, yay. So So I'm an entrepreneur mentor, and I actually I started this program last year with a really cool organization called Champions for Learning, and I have 12 students that are all in high school, and they are all creating products that they're inventing, service and products they're inventing, and they're all going for like a Shark Tank competition with their district within the school. And I was actually asked if I would be interested in mentoring the mentors who mentor all these students. And so I said, sure, why not? Let's do it. So one of the things that I actually had shared with the mentors when I was in this session with them, because they asked me, how do you motivate teenagers? How do we get teenagers to get excited about things? And I said, you know what? One of the things that I do with my students is I always speak life into them, right? And with them, they don't have anybody talking to them about purpose, about vision, about passion. These kids are in a system. It's that mold. You go to school, you come out, you get a job, you go work that job, you get a family, you get a mortgage, you get debt, and then you hopefully retire with some money, and then you play golf or something. And so when I'm with my students, I always ask them, I'm like, what do you really want to do after high school? What do you really love? And they share with me, and I just say, the thing that you need to do is, I said, don't listen to anyone who tells you you have to go this way. I'm like, you need to follow your heart. What do you love? What are you passionate about? If it's not the traditional school system, because I dropped out of high school when I was almost 18. I said, you know what, this isn't for me. I don't like this anymore. School's not really my thing. I'd rather go into the workforce. I want to go into business. That's what I want to do. And I did that. And so I share that with students now. And I told these mentors, I'm like, you need to light a fire in them. Find out what they're passionate about. Find out what they dream about. And then encourage that daily or weekly or monthly. And always talk to them about it. Because then they're going to be like, wow, this person keeps talking to me about these dreams. And you as an adult and someone they trust, you will confirm it for them. So when you're with youth, trust is everything. You have to build trust with them. You want them to listen to you. And then once you build trust with them, encourage them. Because for me, I didn't have anybody to encourage me, but I'm a different kind of breed, right? I never listened to anybody else. I always did my own thing. I'm very intuitive, but not everyone's intuitive. But if I had a mentor like Trista when I was younger, it would have been a game changer. But I would say definitely build trust with them and encourage them to follow their dreams, because too many people are okay with conformity. And that's how we lead ourselves into oppression and slavery, is when we conform. So always encourage them, go against the system if you have to. Follow your heart. And it's as simple as that.
Thank you so much. That was interesting. This one's personal for Miss Trista. What was your mentality during the years that you were waiting to have a child that kept you hopeful and positive?
Honestly, it was just a thought in the back of my head. And it wasn't like a nagging thing for me. I was like, oh, if it happens, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But then as I start to become older, I was 36, 37, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. If I'm going to have them, I should start really trying to have them and be proactive about this. But I never wanted to go the infertility route with the IVF, because I saw a reality show and a celebrity did it, and the emotional fortitude it takes, I was like, that's a lot. And so what happened was, I was just like, God, this is in your hands, and I will do everything I can to be healthy for my body and my husband also, and I'll just leave it in your hands. I didn't want to go IVF. I went to India, and I was teaching the kingdom in India, and I brushed my teeth with their water. And by that grave mistake, I became extremely ill. and I thought I was going to die. They said I looked like death, and I'm on the plane going to Spain because we had property in Spain. My father was doing a development, and I was going to Spain to meet my husband after India. I was so sick. I went back home, and my lymph nodes were swollen, and my armpits. I'm like, there's a parasite in me from India. I need to get it out. I don't know what it is. And I went, everyone's like, yes, we understand. I didn't know what it was, but I wanted it out of my body, whatever I had. And I was so sick. I went to the health food store and I said, there's a parasite in me. I know it. How do I get it out? And he said, I know a holistic doctor who's a skin chemist who detoxifies the body through the largest organ, the skin. And I went to him for a 3-month program of detoxification, and we do the baths, like the foot baths, but in the whole body. He taught me about the foods. He says, don't eat pig. I'm not even going to tell you why because it's disgusting, and you'll never eat pig again, but look it up. And it's even in the Bible. Oh, you know. Why are you offering me pig? You guys, here's some pork, eat
Spam, some bacon.
Oh, spam. And so I did this detoxification. I ate only green foods for a month, which was very hard. And then the month went by. It was a hard month with him. And then all of a sudden, the next month I became pregnant after my detoxification because of India. So God can use a parasite to have a baby. What? So I didn't think about it a lot because I was teaching the kingdom all around the world and loving it. But it was just a quiet thought in the back of my head. It wasn't on the forefront. But God knows the desires of your heart. And I had to detoxify my body. And I was in what he described perfect homeostasis. My body was perfectly balanced. And this is how it felt. I would walk outside and I felt like I could fly. I was like, I feel like I can fly over that building right now. Whoever has those thoughts? I mean, we dream about flying, right?
Only you.
Only me. But my body was in homeostasis. And immediately I got pregnant. And so that was by the grace of God, honestly, because of a parasite.
That's a cool answer. The parasite and all. Okay. So this one's any one of you? One of the statements earlier was never trust a person who has not been tested. So was there a point or situation in your life when you almost decided to quit along the process?
All the time.
Oh my goodness, every day.
Where do we start?
Oh, I would cry. I'm like, I don't need this because of the people. Trust me. There's many of you who have had those thoughts. This isn't worth it. I don't want to do this. And I was pastoring. I was a pastor at the time by accident. I don't know who signs up for that on purpose. But I started teaching the kingdom in the hotel every Sunday morning. And people started coming, and the more people were coming. But in the beginning, I was only playing DVDs of Pastor Myles. Let's come together. Let's all listen together and learn together on DVDs. And I'd sit there, and we had a great time. And then I had a guest come from another location who heard about me from his friend in Spain when I spoke in Spain. They said, you got to go hear this girl talk on business. So he came to visit, and I said, oh, I guess I got to get up and teach, don't I? And so I got up to teach, and then everyone after was like, oh, you got to teach more. And I said, no, let's listen to Dr. Munroe on the videos. You can't get better than that. And so they said, no, we like your live teachings. So it kind of came a Sunday morning thing and was kind of the pastor thing, and I didn't sign up for that. I never did. And I have to tell you, I did it for 4.5 years, and then one day I was like, I'm done. We're done. I've been discipling for 4.5 years, and I went on a Friday. I bought everyone a graduation hat. They showed up on Sunday, and I'm like, congratulations, you're all graduating. And I gave them all hats. We took pictures, and they're like, what's happening? I'm like, go make disciples. See ya. Didn't I?
Bye.
Didn't I?
Oh yeah.
I'm not spoon feeding you for what, your entire life? Jesus didn't even do that. Who am I? I said, he gave you 3.5 years, I'll give you 4.5. That's enough. So I can't even remember the question. Did I want to give up? Oh, it was hard. I cried.
Trista,
cried.
tell them the most important thing about
Listen.
why they should only listen to someone who has been tested, who has scars on their back.
Because otherwise you're a novice. Who wants to follow a novice? No experience. You don't know if they can be trusted. Yes, you'll be disappointed. I mean, is there any...
And I mean, you can even ask somebody a question. What's the most difficult test you've ever passed in your life? What's the worst thing you've been through? What's the hardest thing you've been through? And listen to their answer. Because if someone has a very vague, doesn't really sound like it hasn't really been a lot, and you're listening, you're like, listen, what's the biggest test you've had? If it hasn't been very big, you're like, okay, you're still a novice. Is what I would kind of think.
Okay. I had this one person.
There we go.
I don't know if anyone can relate to this. And I've never felt this in my life, and it was very real. And I invited her because I'm mentoring. You give mentees responsibilities. You give them opportunities, right? You expose them to opportunities. Here, come speak for 5 minutes, give your testimony. I was invited to a place when Dr. Munroe had passed in Bradenton, where I heard him speak. And they said, come, Trista, I want you to speak. He came every year, please speak. And I said, okay, I'm going to bring some mentees. I would like them to share a testimony. And I gave everyone opportunity. Well, this one young lady I had on the team, part of the community, we were in the hotel, we were getting on the elevator, and she had a problem with me. And I don't know to this day what that problem was. But as I was getting on the elevator, I heard her hiss at me like a snake hisses. And I'm like, was that audible or was that spiritual? Was that what I thought it was? And then I had this feeling in my spirit that she wanted me off the face of the earth. She wanted me dead. She wasn't going to kill me. But whatever spirit was operating in her hated me and wanted me dead. And I've never felt that in my life, that somebody wanted you dead. I wish you were dead. And they hiss at you like a snake. I believe it was completely spiritual. And she keeps coming to the meetings, and our meetings were in home groups. We'd meet at the hotel, then we meet in homes. And you have a small home group meeting and somebody's sitting there and wants you dead. I stopped going to my own meetings. I did. I said, somebody else talk. Okay, let's develop you. Yeah. You start teaching. Yeah. I'll see you in a few months. But the spiritual warfare is very real when it's a divine vision and it's a divine assignment from God. The enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And that's his goal. And he uses people to do that. You need people to fulfill a vision. It is the biggest issue I think that we have is God himself has an issue with finding the right people too.
I mean, we're all human. We feel things. We have expectations. One thing I've learned is to lower expectations. Dr. Munroe was Just don't expect everyone, like I said, mentioned earlier, to believe in your vision. You have to have the attitude of, I think Trista talked about it, being alone. You know, you will possibly maybe even be alone for a while. We don't know. A year, 2 years. This is why your vision will be tested for authenticity. Perseverance, true perseverance, is never accepting no. That means, whatever you are visioned to do, and you go to the first person or that you think is going to help you with that vision, say, nope, you keep going. Because if you quit the first time, that was never a true vision. This is why with scars, that's what happens. I mean, we all have scars up here. I mean, but I got to give Trista credit. I mean, she's a tough cookie. But because she caught the vision. And that's why I say, when I was talking earlier, like I felt arrested by destiny because I was like, to be exposed to this vision and then to walk away and think like it's nothing. I don't know about anybody else in those times that we had meetings that you came, how they felt or what their motives are or whatever, because I can't speak for them. But it just hit me one time about how big this vision was. And I remember Dr. Munroe at times would say, or at one time, he doesn't care to be loved, just respect it. And you may not like people, maybe they have different views from you, but I've always respected people that hold their own weight, live righteously, right? And because of their passion to want to see things change for the better. So,
And over time, people's motives are exposed.
Absolutely.
And over time, like he said, the authentic vision, it must be tested for authenticity. Nothing's changed for the vision.
No.
The people have come and gone.
Yeah.
But where are they now? You see them on Facebook. I see them on social media. It doesn't look good at all. Some have gone into depression. Some have almost lost their marriages. And my heart breaks for them. I had one of the closest one that I was training with, and he said, Trista, you drank the Kool-Aid. I said, yes, I did. It tastes so good. But thank you for letting me know you're not in alignment with a vision. That makes this very easy for me. Good luck with your vision. That's fine. You're not called to help with the one that Dr. Munroe and I have. Yeah. No problem.
I'm learning about expectations a lot because, we want good things and we want good things for people, and that's okay. That's normal. But, leadership is, it's not for the faint of heart. When you're going to want to change this world for the better, get ready. Put on your seatbelt because it's going to come after you. The government, people, family, whoever it is that you thought were your friends or on your side, they may be your very, worst enemy. But, of course, God's kingdom is about, the culture is love. So we can't hate nobody, right? We just don't like their ideas.
And they will post about you on social media.
Yeah.
They will talk about you to everybody.
Yeah.
And what's your response? Silence. Who is your defender? That's right. Truth doesn't need to defend itself. Time will defend it. Time will reveal all. It's just a matter of time.
But live righteously. Okay? So they have nothing coming. They can't attack you or just live righteously. And God will always have your back. Always.
Okay, this one's our last question for the day. Is there any chance that a vision will change as time goes by?
That's a very good question. Perhaps. Our responsibility is to be obedient. Just to be obedient. Whatever he says, when he says, how he says it, that's our responsibility. A lot of times we question, we don't understand, we want to wrap our heads around it. I don't think so, but I don't know. because I am not God. I think it will grow and expound and expand according to his time and his way, with the proper networks, associations, people that want the materials. But as far as I know, it's a very simple vision. But you never know because of the God factor. When the God factor is involved, there's a lot of unknown, but that's where faith comes in. My faith is in God, period. Nothing else, nobody else, but in God.
And it's also up to you to maximize everything you're doing for the vision, no matter what stage you're in. If you're taking every opportunity to maximize everything, of course your vision's going to grow. I mean, what is it? There was like a statistic that said that we only really fulfill like 10 or okay, not a statistic, but you only use like 10% of your real potential, right? Like we don't.
That's what they say.
That's what they say, but we don't really maximize our full potential. So, you know, whatever vision you have, like I saw myself 7 years ago talking to a big crowd of people on stage, and I'm like, what? I'm not a public speaker. That's never going to happen. Well, here we are, 7 years later, and I'm on stage in front of all of you. This is something that I saw many, many years ago.
God, you're right.
Right?
I remember she was telling me, she goes, no, that is not going to happen. I'm a writer. I'm not good on the microphone. I go, well, you can't stop that if that's what God put in your heart. I go, because he usually he will cause you to do things that are so uncomfortable for you.
Yeah.
So never lead with your emotions, because your emotions will deceive you. Be careful with your emotions. Love is not about emotion. It's an action word. Don't get me wrong. We want to feel love, and that's okay. But be careful with your emotions, because they will deceive you. And this is why, lean on the Holy Spirit. He's the one that will tell you, he'll give you insight. He gave us insight about our situation for her coming back home and stuff. And he helps Trista with that, with the vision and stuff. So, and be patient. Again, expectations. If you tell God, okay, if this doesn't happen right away, then I'm done. Well, then you were never made for it, and you're not going to last. So be careful how you bargain with God, right? Because again, your vision is bigger than what I'm realizing is, obviously, as you go forward in your vision and stuff, you have things that you want to accomplish or what God has put in your heart. And usually, a lot of times, it's not the way you pictured it, but it makes sense. It makes sense. You're like, yeah, this isn't, it's not what I saw, but this makes sense. Like for her, being in politics, we didn't see that coming. I'm like, no.
I go, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. But after I ran and went through the experience, and months later, kind of almost now, maybe like a few months ago, I go, I didn't understand it at first, but now it definitely makes sense. But everything is a process. So if you want to know about your vision, well, you just got to know what's inside your heart, lean on the Holy Spirit, and don't abandon the process. Go through it. Get those scars on your back. You're going to need them because it helps you build confidence. And the more tests you pass, the more adversity you overcome, the more confident you become. And I think God can trust you for the vision. So you've got to prove that you can be trusted to have everything you dream of. If you can't be trusted, God's not going to give it to you. That's a big key.
And taking a leap of faith is you jumping out of the airplane without the parachute, and God will give it to you on the way down.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Whoops. The mind of the teacher.
That's all.
That's it.